What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Fight Within podcast. Today's guest is Jason Parillo. He's one of the best MMA boxing coaches around. He's worked with the likes of Tito Ortiz, BJ Penn, Chris Cyborg, Rafael Dos Anjos, Mark Munoz, and an array of other fighters. He's here today to talk about a little bit about his story, share his background. And so, Jason, thank you, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. I know we've been talking back and forth about trying to get you on, so I really appreciate your time. A lot of people know you as a boxing coach. They don't know your story in boxing. So why boxing? You know, a lot of kids grow up wanting to be cops or football players or firefighters. A lot of guys don't grow up wanting to be boxers and get into combat sports. So how'd you get into boxing and how'd you fall in love with the sport?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Manny. Well, I mean, boxing is just, I was always really into martial arts since I was a little kid. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I used to watch a show called Kung Fu Theater. I don't know if anybody remembers Kung Fu Theater, but every Saturday and Sunday they had Kung Fu Theater that come on early in the morning. I'd wake up bright and early in the morning, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, go and watch my Kung Fu Theater. But over the course of time, I got involved in martial arts called Lua Lima when I was about 11 years old. It's Polynesian martial arts. I got into that for a bit, and then a few years later, I was 14, 15 years old, I got into kickboxing. Okay. And then a really good friend of mine, Sean McCauley, that I grew up with as we were kids, he's the one that, you know, got me into the kickboxing, but he also was into boxing down in Westminster, training with a coach by the name of Jesse Reed. He brought me down there when I was 16, 17 years old, and met Jesse Reed, and again, I was always in the martial arts. I was always into the idea of fighting, and it just something that I just was just attracted to since I can remember. And when I met Jesse, it was like, it just opened up the doors for me. I mean, here was a world-class coach that took a liking to me and paid attention to a kid that fucking, at the end of the day, when you're attracted to want to fight when you're a kid, you're obviously probably not growing up in the best environment. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, but here's a man that's a world-class coach that, you know, paid attention to me, thought that I had a lot of talent, thought that I had a lot of ability, and it just fucking made me fall in love with it. You know, it's just something that it's all I cared about.
Yeah. You know? But is that something that you think was, like, played an important role in your life because there's someone that believed in you? You know, a lot of people talk about like self-belief and self-confidence, but that can only get you so far. You know, even though it's a combat sport and it's an individual sport, people don't realize how much you need your teammates, how much you need your coaches, and how much you need that supporting group. Like, what did that do for your career as far as your confidence going in, being in a combat sport?
It's actually everything. It really, I mean, because you know, you talk about all these great fighters and having the right people around you, you know, which is obviously most important. There's a lot of guys with the talent and the ability to get there kind of on their own or whatever, but realistically, they had the right sense of, they had people around them directing at least in the right direction. You know what I mean? Having a proper coach, I think, is one of the most valuable things a fighter or an athlete in general, you know, could have. You know, having this coach, you know, at a young age, it's the reason why I'm in the position. It's the reason why I'm doing this podcast right now. Yeah. It's the reason why that I've had the success of with all the athletes that I've worked with. It's the reason why I stuck with it all these years. You know what I mean? The only reason, I mean, I'm not just saying that. Having a figure, a coach, and having somebody in your life that confirms your confidence in yourself, confirms that you're a bad little motherfucker, or a dude that fucking, that helps you, that's saying it's okay to be a fighter. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not okay to be a fighter, most people. I mean, most people's parents are going like, oh, is that what you want to do, son? You want to be a fighter? Good for you. Go be a fighter. You know, and that's not a fucking, you know, like you said, people want to be policemen, firemen, lawyers, doctors. They will be like, hey, mom, dad, I want to be a fighter. Like, the fuck's wrong with my kid? Yeah. You know what I mean? And then to have a man that's the same age as my parents going, fuck yeah, you could be a fighter.
It's
And
okay.
fuck yeah, you're going to be the best fighter around. And you really have a shot at making it in this world. You have a shot at making it in the fight world. You have a shot at being a champion. You have a shot at making all this money and doing something with yourself. You know what I mean? That's like, as a kid and not getting that proper attention from an adult, you know what I mean? And from somebody that, positive energy and a positive person, fucking, just makes you go, holy fuck, this is something I can do. So it definitely was a huge part of me staying in that lane and pushing for it. You know what I mean?
Because some people have self-confidence, and I guess you have to a certain extent to be an athlete. But then how do you get to the mental strength? Because if you listen to Mike Tyson, a lot of times he talks about how he felt like a god. No one can beat him. He's the best fighter in the world. But now if you listen to his interviews, he says, no, back then I really thought like that, but it was all in fear. It was because I was scared and insecure. Is that a healthy, when you're in the back, you get nervous. You're about to fight. There's a scheduled fight. You're fighting a dude that is just as good as you are, trained just as much as you did. And his whole goal is to defeat you. So how do you use that mental strength and that nervousness into a positive energy like you were talking about?
Well, I think the mental strength and the mental strength and the insecurity is what made you walk through those doors of the gym. All right, it's like, okay, I got to figure out how to defend myself, or I got to figure out how to be this tough guy that I want to be. Yeah. And studying Mike Tyson when I was a kid, Mike Tyson's older than me and somebody that I used to look at, and we all looked at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson used to cry like a baby before he fought. If you watch an old film of him and Teddy Atlas, and Teddy Atlas is sitting there and he's a 13-year-old boy and he's crying and he's scared because he's going to go. He's not scared to fight. He's scared to go fucking put himself out in front of people and take a chance of getting his ass kicked in front of people. Yeah. Being vulnerable to the crowd. And Casamano used to say it. He's like, the fear in the athlete, the fear in the fighter is not getting his ass kicked. The fear in the athlete and the fighter is going out there and being exposed to the crowd. That's the fear. That's a fear. That's a big fear because most fighters got their ass kicked way before they walked in the gym. Yeah. You know what I mean? That happened when as a fucking child. You know what I mean? That happened. That's why they're in the gym. Because they feel less than. And they think that the only way that they're going to feel better then is to be an ass kicker. That's a big part of it. Big part of my coaching is psychological game. That's what coaching is. Is my specialty boxing? Yes, that's my specialty as a fight coach. My specialty is the hands and the movement and the fighting. But this is what makes me connect with my athletes and my fighters, is talking to them and coaching them. Coaching their not only them physically, but coaching them psychologically. Because at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down. I don't know any fighter that started off just thinking they're the cock of the block and just thinking that they're I don't care if you're John Jones, I don't care who you are. John Jones had insecurities and issues, and he had older brothers that kicked the fuck out of him and whatever, and started finding it in wrestling. And he found it before he got into fighting. Yeah. He found that self-confidence and that belief in himself before he actually stepped in the fight world. If you look at any of these great athletes, these great fighters, and you go down their timeline and really look and watch where they came from, there was a transfer that happened in their life from this insecure little fucking, this insecure, even if he's trying to act tough and bold and cocky and whatever, it's not real yet. There's not a real self-confidence there yet. It's not there. It's got to be earned, and it's got to be developed over the course of time. And I think being around the right people and having the right direction is a big part of it. It really is. And hopefully we're answering a question that you asked me to begin with, but at the end of the day, that's what I feel in talking about self-confidence. Self-confidence comes through the hard work and believing in the people that are telling you that you can do this, and believing, we all kind of believe in ourselves. We're all human beings.
Sure.
We're all human. We all put pants one leg at a time, as they say. You know what I mean? So we're all going to deal with the same fucking psychological issues as the next guy. Time and time again, what's it saying? You're talking to your fighter the night before the fight, and he's nervous. You say, you know who else is going to have a hard time sleeping tonight? Your fucking opponent. he's also going to have a hard time sleeping at night because he's going through the same thing psychologically as you are. So don't think that you're the fucking only cunt laying in bed scared to fucking death.
In that regard, you worked with some of the top in MMA. You worked with some of the top fighters, and I'm talking legends: BJ, Tito, Bisping. What separates them, in your opinion? And you don't have to go into detail, but with that specific the subject that we're talking about, mental strength and self-confidence, what do you think separates them? Did they identify it early, or are they comfortable with who they are and in their skin and where they're at in their career? Like what separates them?
I understand what you're saying. You know what? I think it's their desire and want. Their want and their desire is more, there's got to be ability. Okay, as a fighter, there's got to be ability there. There's got to be some physical ability there. There really does. To think that, and the saying is, are champions made or are they born? I always say the answer to that question for me is it's got a little bit of both. Yeah. It's got to be a little bit of both. It's that a fighter's got to be the most egotistic man on the planet to think that he just did it on his own, and a coach has got to be the most egotistic man on the planet to think that if it wasn't for him, he couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a kind of a catch-22 with that whole fucking thing, There's got to be a little bit of both. There definitely has to be a little bit of both. And what I've noticed with the champs that I've been around, they really all there is a similar fucking twitch there, it's a psychological twitch, yeah. There's a desire and a need and a want to be the best on the planet more than the rest of the guys in the gym. There really is, and I'm going to be honest here. What I really truly believe as a coach in my experience with all these athletes over the years is there's an intelligence too as well. Mm-hmm. There's a difference and I think that's in all sports. I don't care if you're playing football, basketball, baseball, whatever. You get all these guys with the same amount of physical ability, the same good coaching, the same good. They all got the same level of everything around them. Now, who's going to rise? What cream's going to rise to the top? A lot of time it's going to be the smartest guy in the room. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying the other guy. You understand what I'm saying?
100%.
If I'm going to believe that psychologically and mentally that's the biggest part of athletics and the biggest part of the game, when you get to that point, when you get to the point to where you should be there, how can I not say being not the brightest guy in the room, but the best thinker? We'll say the best thinker at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's unfair for me to say one person's smarter than the other because that's not.
No. I get. Well, it's like football. For instance, Bill Belichick was never like a super great athlete, extremely smart man, an extremely smart coach, and knew what to do with what he had.
Right.
Now, I'm not a Patriots fan. I hate the Patriots. But as a coach and as someone that is helping lead a team, he has that. And just talking about that, how was your transition from boxing into coaching? Like, is that something that you had thought of, like when you first started boxing? Like, hey, I'm gonna coach.
Kinda. Only because of my coach Jesse Reed used to take me wherever he went. So when he had fighters a lot of times he had fighters like from Johnny Tapia to Paul Spadafora, these world champion athletes, these world champion fighters. I was their size so I could spar with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I kind of transitioned to actually helping him coach too at the same time. As an assistant coach, I was holding the hand pads for the guys. And I opened up a gym called, me and Sean McCauley and this guy Wade Halverson, we opened up a gym called LA Boxing back in 1992. They ended up franchising LA Boxing's. UFC gyms ended up buying the LA Boxings. Yeah. But back in 92, we opened up LA Boxing in Costa Mesa. And so I would go to the gym at Westminster and I would box, and then my job, how I paid my bills and how I was on my own at a young age. I would go and hold hand pads for everyday Joe Blows and fucking housewives and fucking businessmen and shit. That's what a lot of people do now. Like I was doing this back then when nobody did this.
Yeah.
This wasn't anything that nobody, now there's a gym on every fucking corner and people are doing fitness boxing and all this shit. This is back in 92 when nobody was fucking doing this shit, So I was kind of coaching whatever I was doing at the gym. I would go and and teach everybody else. You know what I mean? So I'm like fucking paying my bills, and that's what a lot of guys do nowadays too. I see people doing it. For me, when I talk to fighters, actually, I go, don't do that. If you really want to be the best in the world, it actually burns you out. You know what I mean? Because it actually, because a fighter wants to put all his energy into himself. Now when you're putting your energy into all these guys and try to make other people better or develop people or help people, now you got to be a selfish fucking cocksucker when it comes down to it at the end of the day when you're a fighter. You do. It's got to be all about you. It's got to be about your diet, your running, your conditioning, your training, and you're going to be the number one. And that's all that, as soon as you start stepping away from that and try to put your energy into other people, you start burning both sides.
Yeah. So how was, once you transitioned into coaching, did you automatically start working with boxers or martial artists? Like how was that? Who was your first client, if you will?
Outside, yeah, okay. So, but I've worked world title fights. I've cornered world title fights again with my coach. Back when I was still fighting, I worked Johnny Tapia's fifth world title. I've been the corner Paul Spadafora, Francois Botha. What's the Ruelas brothers? Gabriel Ruelas. I don't know if you remember the Ruelas brothers, but like I had been involved in corners way before I retired. But when I retired, I had a lot of injuries. I don't want to get too involved in those, but I had a fighter by the name of Danny Perez. Danny Perez was a fighter that I had sparred with. He was a pro when I was an amateur, so. I had sparred with Danny and hadn't seen him in years, and he was unsuccessful. There's a couple different Danny Perez. I don't know if we're talking about the same one, but maybe.
Danny from Ruka?
Yeah, Danny from Ruka.
Yeah.
Okay, go. So Danny was 0-5 as a professional boxer. So I'd never won a fight, and he was watching, I think it might have been Francois Botha against Clifford Etienne. He saw me in the corner of that fight. I think it was either that or Johnny Tapia and Manuel Medina. I don't know which one. But I know it was one of those fights. He saw me in the corner. He was watching HBO. He goes, "Holy fuck, I used to spar with that kid." You know what I mean? And he's, so he looked me up, found me at LA Boxing. Came down. I was in the gym holding the iPads. He came walking in. Danny Perez. Holy fuck, Danny Perez. Because I remember he was a sweet boxer, man. He was good, and but he never. There's a guy there's a fine example. Just didn't have the right direction. Didn't have the right coaching around him. Didn't have the guy, he was just kind of doing a lot of shit on his own, but athletic kid and tough kid and the whole 9 yards, but really kind of nobody gave a fuck about him, so there he goes. He's getting put in the wrong fights, the wrong time, and goes 0-5 and retires, and now he's in the mortgage world. He's making some money, and it's something that he loved more than life itself. He wanted to be a fighter. So he came back, said, "I want to be a fighter," saw me, said, "Hey, Jay, I wouldn't mind you helping me out a little bit, see if we can do something, And I said, all right. So started working with Danny. Danny ended up, I remember he won his first fucking professional boxing fight with me. It was like fucking Christmas, Easter, his birthday, and fucking, everything all wrapped up in one. You know what I mean? He was like a fucking kid in the candy store. It was the happiest fucking moment of his life. Anyways, Danny went from winning one fight to winning 10 fights or whatever. He ended up winning 2 titles. So they were not the highest rating titles out there in the world, but he went out and won 2 belts. You know what I mean? Yeah. And here's a guy that was 0-5. He went from 0-5 to having 2 proper fucking belts on his trophy case at his house. You know what I mean? And it was just, it was a big deal for him. And it was a big deal for me as well, too, because my coach, Jesse Reed, used to say it to me all the time. I remember being out in Erie, Pennsylvania, and at Paul Spadafora's camps, and he'd go, "Jay, and I was helping Paul maybe with something. He goes, "Jay," "you really do have the personality for this." He goes, if boxing doesn't work out for you, he goes, "I could see you being a high-level coach." He goes, "Because you definitely have the understand the psychological aspect of it, but you also most definitely have the personality for it. Because at the same time, you do have to be able to connect with people. There's some coaches out there that they could direct you in a lot of they know how to count. They know how to count fucking. They say, you should do 5 more. You should do another round.
But there goes that confidence again. Even though that is a different field, now you're not an athlete. Now you're going to be, in my position, you're going to be a coach or a mentor. Now you're put in that position and you're given that confidence again. You know, and like you were saying with Danny, it's a perfect example. Just having a little bit of a pivot or redirection took him to a completely different place, a higher level. And so what kind of struggles, like not only did you have to deal with, but how do you deal with struggles as a coach? Do you give your fighter space or do you stay on them right away?
The biggest thing with a coach, and I say it time and time again, and I'll say this for the rest of my life. This won't be the last interview or last podcast or interview or whatever we got going on here that I say this, but it's a fact of the matter is patience is a virtue. You know, and I think that's the most fucking important thing in the world for a coach to have. Because there's coaches out there going, you gotta listen, I see coaches get mad. They get mad. I don't really get mad at my fighters. You know, did me and you actually didn't mention Michael Bisping, but I had coached a fighter by the name of Michael Bisping in the very beginning of this. And me and Mike Bisping is one of the fighters that we've probably we've had a couple moments where we bumped heads. You know what I mean? And but I don't get mad at him, you know, because I understand. I mean, most importantly, their ego it's about their ego. Now, when I was a fighter, that's what's nice about being a fighter before you end up being a coach. I think that's very important to have been an athlete of some sort. You talked about Bill Belichick. At least he did it. You don't have to be the best. I'm not saying best in the world, but walk the walk. You know what I mean? Go through it. Have some sacrifices. Sacrifice everything else in your life for the sport that you're doing before you go out and tell other people to sacrifice everything in their life. Do you know what I mean? And my coach used to say it too, because you know what? You know when you're going to find out your coach is full of shit when you're a fighter? Is when you go back to the corner in between rounds and you sit on that stool and you look him in the eye and you go, fuck this motherfucker. Because you're going to feel their energy. You're going to feel their spirit. You're going to know if they've been there before. You know what I mean? You want to ask your athlete and your fighter to do something that you'd be willing to do yourself. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go sit there and tell a guy to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. You know what I mean? I think that's I think that's very important. You know, but to go back to answer your question, and that's how I've developed patience for this as well. You know, you do have the patience, and if you do it enough times, you're going to find people got to fall on their fucking face too as well in order to learn. You could tell them to your blue in the face, please don't do this. Don't do that, or do this and don't do that. You tell people got to learn on their own. You know, and that's where patience comes into play as well, because people have to. You could. Some people will trust you and go by your word and whatnot, but I don't think it really sticks in their soul and their gut until they actually do learn on their own. You know, so sometimes you got that little bit of patience and let a motherfucker fall on his face.
But how do you deal with that? Not relationship. I guess, yes, relationship, because there's such a business now. You know, and I tell my wife all the time, I'm a dad, and I say, no, don't let him or her get up. If they just fell on their knee, they scraped their leg. If they get up, they're gonna learn. Like, oh damn, that hurt. I'm not gonna do that again. But now there's such a business to it, because sometimes you do. I agree. You have to let them fall. They fall flat on their face, and they got to learn. But what happens if the fighter then blames you and says, "Oh no, you were supposed to be there for me"? How do you deal with the business side of it? Because there is now. If you look at BJ's career, you as a leader, you got, I don't want to say blamed, you got awarded for his successes.
And I've got blamed for his.
Once he decided to do something a little different, you got blamed for that. So well. He's still a fighter. He's if he decides to change something up, that's on him. You did your job as a coach. So how do you deal with that responsibility?
First, when it comes to BJ, I didn't get rewarded when he first.
But it was
when it was told. I got blamed before I ever got rewarded. I ended up getting rewarded years later, actually, which really was a quirky way that happened with me and BJ. You know, because I remember like when he was whooping Sean Shirk and boxing his ears off. I remember Joe Rogan saying, Freddie Roach says he has the best boxing in fucking MMA. And I'm like, oh, can I get a little love? A little bit? You know what I mean? But I didn't care at the time. And I think this will help answer this question as well, too. You can't care about that shit. If you're going, and it being a business, if you're going into it, I I was worried about feeding my fucking kids.
Yeah.
And worried about having one arm and one eye, and I was just worried about fucking, I didn't give a fuck about MMA. I didn't give a fuck about anything, dude. I gave a fuck about feeding my kids and seeing my kids, first of all, because that's a whole different world at this time, you know. But that's when I got into this. This is my job, and this is what I do now. You know what I mean? And that's all I'm fucking thinking about. And this is all I'm doing. So I don't, you know, there was the social media wasn't what it was today.
Yeah, it wasn't as.
So
big,
it wasn't like it wasn't. I wasn't even on. I didn't even have any social media platforms. Nothing. Maybe Facebook or something like that. But at the end of the day, there was nothing about that. You know, it had nothing to do with that. And as a business, and I already had experience leading up to this point. Like, I already had been doing. I did 8 camps as a sparring partner, as a training partner, but still being involved and seeing the coaching aspect with Paul Spadafora. He had 8 fights on HBO fights. Prior to that, Johnny Tapia, Francois. I talk about all these old school boxers that I had worked with as well and been around camp. So I had been around, and I was sparring partner for Fernando Vargas. I went and spent time up in Big Bear with Fernando Vargas and his coaching staff, Roger Bloodworth, really high-level guys, and I would pick their brains, and I would talk to them. At the time, I remember I talked, but I'm not going to go off subject on that. But in the grand scheme of things, I guess, let me bring it back to this, is personality, and let's go back to what Jesse said to me when we're in that camp around Erie, Pennsylvania. You got the personality for this, Jay. And that's huge because you got to be able to connect with these you got to be able to not connect with these athletes like they know what you're fucking talking about when it comes to fighting.
Yeah.
But when it comes to life, you know what I mean? When it comes to life, you know, this motherfucker just goes, hey, you know, when that fight's said and done, he can't blame me. If you are educated enough and you're a proper coach, that motherfucker can't blame you when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Because you already fucking talked to him about every aspect there is leading up to that point, even the losing aspect. So when it's all fucking said and done, he comes back and he looks at you and said, I'll let you, there's nothing you can fucking say to me, motherfucker. Because we've already talked about all of this. You know what I mean? And I let you make your own choices on a lot of different things. And I correct you and I try and I say, can I be very manipulating? Sure I can. But I usually manipulate for a guy's best interest. You know, so for me, a lot of times with my coaching too, is I let guys make the decision on their own. I point them in the right direction and say, that's probably the better direction to go, but you can go that way if that's what you want to do. Yeah. It's up to you. You go, 90% of the times they go that direction, the direction that I point them. You know what I mean? And then if they do go that direction and they do fall on their face, they can't say shit. You know what I mean?
But do you think, you brought up a good point. You said you talked to him about losing. Do you think it's a mistake when coaches don't talk about that? Like they're going to fluff you up and say, no, you're going to win. You're the greatest. You're the best. That dude's doing the same thing and his coaches are telling him the same thing.
I think you got to be realistic. I think this is a real world we all fucking live in, whether it's a fight world or fucking, you know, or you're fucking, you know, busboy at fucking IHOP. You know, at the end of the day, fucking this is this is a real world. If you don't realize that you can go out there and lose, you're just a fucking, you know, you got to understand especially in MMA. You know, MMA, and that's a beautiful thing about MMA is because you can lose and it's okay. You know what I mean? I come from boxing. Boxing, you lose, you're fucked. That's why they got you fighting fucking, you know, you're fighting fucking guys with losing records for your first 20 fucking fights. You know what I mean? A lot of times because fucking, it's the business of boxing is fucking, it's taboo. It's taboo to lose. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's not easy to stay undefeated going to the boxing world. But going back to MMA, it's okay to lose. And does it affect you psychologically? Sure, all this, the whole 9 yards. But I'm not implanting in their subconscious it's okay to lose. That's not what I'm doing. Yeah. But there is that's realistic. There's a possibility of all of us losing. There's a possibility of us winning, and there's a possibility of losing. That's the nature of the game now, isn't it? You know, but you got to be prepared for either one. You know, I think there's a lot of guys. Some guys go extreme one direction or the other. I go off the feel a lot more. Like people say, what do you do? I'm a feel guy. Yeah. You know, I go off my life experience, my experience as an athlete, my experiences with my coaching, with my coach himself, all the experiences, all the different athletes that I've worked with over the years, different fighters over the years. Now I can go off feel. I can get a big part of me is getting to know a guy. If I started working with you today, me and you started, where you just said, I want to be a fighter, you're a fighter, you're a young kid, whatever, I develop a relationship with you. Yeah. I don't sit there and go, well, this is how it is, and got my little chart, and like, okay, well, Monday and Tuesdays we do this, and Wednesdays and Thursdays, this is our schedule, and this is that, because that's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit, dude. And this isn't a team sport. You said at the beginning of this video, this is an individual sport. It is an individual sport. This isn't a fucking team sport.
No.
This isn't Jason Parillo's team. This isn't fucking BJ's team or Mike's team. It is when it's just you fighting, it's okay. It's Bam Bam's, okay? Yeah. This is Bam Bam's hour. You know, this isn't fucking Jason's hour. This is your hour. Yeah. And I'm going to get to know who the fuck you are, and you're going to get to know who the fuck I am. So when we go into the motherfucking battlefield, you trust me and I fucking trust you. And that's what it's fucking all about. Because people are, you know, a lot of times there's a lot of coaches out there that go off their reputation and think that their reputation's enough. They got this. You know the guys that walk in the fucking gym and they walk around, they look, and they posture properly, and they handle, and you know what I mean by posture. They posture properly. They got this fucking bullshit is what they got. They're fucking. There's an ego there that I got rid of a long fucking time ago. There's a fucking ego in a lot of coaches that are bigger than the fucking fighters in the room. Yeah, I see that time and time again, and it's bullshit. Yeah. Your ego goes out the fucking door. Guess what, dude? You can go in a fight with fucking 3 fighters. 2 win, 1 lose, or all 3 lose, or all 3 win. Either way, you're gonna feel the saying is this, and I've said this time and time again. And I hear the saying said. I don't know if I heard it or if it got repeated because of me saying it. But at the end of the day, it feels way worse to lose than how good it feels to win. Do you know what I mean? So, a job as a coach. If you're a coach, you're going into each fight it's your job. You're there to get this guy through this fucking war, get this guy through his fucking, the thing that he thinks about is the most important thing in the world. He goes to sleep with his wife at night and he fucking cries himself to sleep because he's scared that he's going to fucking lose. He's going to get embarrassed. You know, he's going to get embarrassed and go through the Customato thing, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of truth to that. So you got to, you know, and the only way they're going to fucking, my athletes, every fighter that I've had since fucking since BJ Penn, I said, when they lose their fights, they look at me and say, I'm sorry, coach. I said, don't ever fucking say sorry to me. Yeah. But every single one of them does. I've yet to have a fighter go, motherfucking, it was your fault. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't, unless we just didn't work together and they asked me. I've had guys ask me to work the corners a lot of times. I worked a lot of corners, which I'm trying to make up for the mistake of doing that. I try not to do that anymore, is work a corner of a guy that I haven't been working with. Do you know what I mean? They say, hey, work my corner. And I'm like, oh, fuck. You can't. Yeah, I've done it.
Because of the way you coach.
I've done it, yeah, exactly. And I've done it numerous amount of times just to help out. Like maybe I'm at the event, they say, hey, can you work the corner and wrap my hands or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I've done it. I've done it with BJ a handful of times just because BJ trusts me so much that he thinks that if he's in a tough situation. I stopped that fight with GSP. And I think he thought to himself, with that being done, he thought to himself, Jason's got my back no matter what. No matter what. He don't give, you should. And but he learned, they have to learn that. They don't know for sure. Nobody knows, as a human being, we don't know for sure who the fuck has your back.
As a fighter, though, that should be your first inclination. That should be your first thought. My coach stopped it. He has a relationship with me. He stopped it because he has my back.
He's worried about me. He's not worried about the scorecards. He's not worried about the audience. He's not worried about the
So why do you think Wilder was like, no, let me go out on my shield? Because he's been working with this coach for a long time. This coach has history. He's been around the sport. He'll thank
his coach. He'll thank his coach later.
100%.
At the time, people are like, what the fuck are the fucking? They don't. And if there's any fans out there that watch boxing and say fuck you to their coach, they can go fuck themselves. Seriously, they can go fuck themselves. That coach knows his athlete, and that's what's most important. Exactly. Is knowing your athlete. Is knowing. I didn't have to say one word to BJ Penn in between rounds. I had other coaches that were working the corner. Come on, BJ, come on, come on. I just looked at him. through the cage, and I'm looking at him. And I see this guy in the gym. I've been living with the guy for fucking months on end. So this guy's done. There's no point of going out and taking the damage. If this guy wants a future later, not only just in fighting, just in life, you know what I mean? Every blow pays a difference. And when you're that fatigued and you're that out of it, and you're that point of a fight, you know what I mean? Every blow on top of that is worse and worse. It's taking a piece of your soul. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck that. Fuck everybody in this whole arena, on this pay-per-view card fight. And that's not what you're thinking. I'm not thinking about fuck everybody. I'm not thinking. All I'm thinking about is him. Yeah. So I'm here because of him. I'm here with him. And he's the most important motherfucker in the room right now to me. He's my child. You know what I mean? And not my child. But you know what I mean? That's how you're looking at it like, I'm going to get my fucking guy out of here. We're done. Let's get the fuck out of here, dude. You don't need any more of this shit. You know what I mean? And you have to, and to go back to your Wilder and his coach was looking at him going, Wilder's done. This is my man. It's my man. I know my man. I watch him. I've seen him like this in the gym before. He's seen him like that before the gym. Wilder is not a guy that never loses a fight. Me and you were just talking to Mark Munoz about one day a guy kicks your ass and one day the guy. He's seen Wilder get his ass kicked in the gym probably. Yeah. He's seen his not show up to the gym, maybe he had a rough night, whatever it is. He's like, my boy Wilder's done. He goes, and I'm just going to stop it. Why let this fucking Tyson Fury that has a gifted gab put him out on his back? He actually...
It's like a double win if he does.
It's a double win. Yeah, it's a double win. He goes, let me get him out of there so he's not humiliated.
It's not going to be as embarrassing.
Yeah, I don't want him not only take more damage, but also have a humiliating knockout as well. Not that it's humiliating, but he's looking out for his best interests, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, I don't think there's a better way to end that than that. So that was damn good. Where can people find you? You're at RVCA now.
Yeah.
We can maybe have a short story after on social media or something about how you got hooked up with them. But where can people find you? How can people contact you? And do you have anything to plug away?
No, that's it. Parillo Boxing. I got RVCA I've been in RVCA for 10 years actually now.
Oh wow.
About 12 years probably. Well, we opened up. Me and BJ were a big part of starting RVCA Sport really. So the RVCA gym. That's awesome. The RVCA gym happened because we decided to come from Hawaii to Orange County to start training for, I think it was Kenny Florian fight. Pat Tenori had introduced me to BJ before that Carl Uno fight many years ago. And we worked together for about a week or so, week or two, whatever, in California. And I actually was still fighting myself around that point. Yeah. And then fast forward it to him rematching Jens Pulver. Pat's like, I got to get you out to, I think he was coming off a couple losses, BJ, and he goes, I got to get you, he's going down to 155, I got to get you out working with BJ, helping him with his boxing and whatnot. And so they flew me out to Hawaii and I connected with BJ. Me and him had hit it off before, but we really fucking hit it off right off the get-go. Yeah. And I pretty much, through what I was going in my personal life, I was able to spend a lot of time in Hawaii. So I stayed for the most part for a couple of years now out in Hawaii. I was coming back and forth. They had an airline at the time called Aloha Airlines, so they were able to fly me back and forth to see my kids here, and every other week or whatever. But I was spending the majority of my time in Hawaii. So we had been training in Hawaii, and then BJ had lost that fight to GSP when he went up in weight, which wasn't the best move in the world, but it was what it was. And we decided, hey, you know what? Let's go to California and start training in California. Came out to California, and we were looking for a spot to train. I still had a relationship with LA Boxing, so I was thinking maybe we can go there, but it was a public gym, and it just would have been a real shit show. Yeah. So we had gone to a buddy of mine's gym, or his warehouse, and we're looking at a warehouse, me and JD Penn, BJ's brother, and we're like, God, maybe we should just build something out in here. And I was talking to Pat, and he's like, fuck, and Pat was just scrambling because Pat loved the fact that we made a decision to come out there and start training out there. He loved having BJ out here. And he goes, Jay, we're gonna build a gym right here in fucking RVCA. Fuck it. Yeah. That's what we're gonna fucking do. Yeah. He goes, that's what's happening. I was like, fuck it. Pat, within, I think, 10 days, we had that gym. He said, it wasn't what it is today.
No, I remember.
But it was a rough draft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
a rough draft. And we started, we had the Kenny Florian fight there. We did the Kenny Florian fight there. We did the Diego Sanchez fight there. And then BJ, after that, decided to go back to Hawaii. He'd like to spend more time in Hawaii. But at that point, now Pat goes, well, this is your gym now, Jay. I mean, fuck. I mean, we built it. It's here. It's fucking, it's what we got. We already got it, a big part of our fucking headquarters, and we know BJ's, who knows when BJ's going to be back down there. BJ is, but God bless him. But so boom, so there, now we got the gym there, and then I went on with Tito, reconnected with me, and then Michael Bisping came in, then fucking Chris Cyborg came in. So then I started getting a couple world champions out of there, and so it started going, and then we came up with, they came up with RVCA Sport, so.
Well, that's how I met you, was because we did Mark's retirement fight was at RVCA.
Yes.
In 2014 or 15.
Yes.
So we were going, it was a small group of us, but I remember it was like Tito and Rafael Davis. And, Bisping would come in. Kendall was training, helping Mark for that last fight.
Yep.
And I was like, man, this is dope. I didn't know how it worked. I was like, oh, this is a private gym. Like, am I supposed to be here?
No, it's always it's an invitable. Like it's there's a little mystique there with it too, and that's part of it. And that's what they wanted was a private gym. We wanted a private gym out of there so we could train fighters.
Yeah.
Does that make it overly lucrative for a coach like myself? No, not really. Public gyms seem to generate more money than.
Yeah.
But that's not what that gym was designed for. That gym was designed specifically, and Pat liked the idea of me having my own gym and be able to train, because he knew that I like to train fighters. Yeah. I didn't want to train everyday Joe Blow. Not that because I've done that. I've been holding hand pads to pay my bills for over 27 years. You know what I mean? And I still will continue to do that the rest of my life. I'll train anybody. It's not like I won't. But it was nice to have a private gym to where we can talk the way we talk, walk the way we walk, and do what 100%. We want to do. You know what I mean? And get real concept for getting ready for a fight. Not having a fighter like a BJ Penn, a Michael Bisping, a Tito, or any of these guys, coming in, and now you got people coming up and asking them for a picture. Yeah. Or people are coming, we don't have to worry about that. It's going to happen no matter where you go. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's not like you got...
We take pictures like after practice.
It's not like we got a classroom full of people.
Yeah, exactly.
That are doing also a fitness boxing or a fitness kickboxing class. And then, it's kind of crossing over into the pro class or whatever. Yeah. A lot of these guys have the pro class. But most of these public gyms, if they're going to depend on the fighters to stay open, they're going to fucking close. Yeah. You need the everyday Joe Blows.
100%.
You need the class structure for people, for the fitness. The fitness is going to keep your doors open. The fighting is what your passion, your love is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and the RVCA gym started from passion and love of the sport, really, at the end of the day, and that's what happened. And past love for BJ Penn and how he supported BJ for so many years, even back in the jiu-jitsu days, and Pat's belief and love for me as well, because I've known Pat since we were 18-year-old kids. You know what I mean?
You have?
Yeah. So okay. He always knew. He always had the belief in me that, in a lot of my friends growing up, I believed that I was going to be a world champion, that I was going to do something and be a fighter. Then they always watched me coach fighters, and they knew that I was involved with all these, with Jesse Reed and the story that I was talking about earlier. But at the end of the day, it just, it organically happened that way.
Yeah, but for someone like Pat to show that type of support and that love,
Oh, dude,
again, it's another person giving you that confidence and believing in you.
100%.
And being like, go.
It's 100%. You're gonna find very few Pat Tenoris out in the world. You really are.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find a lot of guys like that have love and have the visionary for it too. Pat's not just gonna just like and love somebody and put a lot of money into something because he loves and likes them. I mean, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's still an intelligent human being.
100%.
He'll put love and like in somebody and try to help. You know what I mean? But he's also, just like anybody, in a good coach or a good athlete, anybody, you got to have a vision. You got to say, okay, well, this guy can make it. This guy, these two guys have something special and there's something that's going to happen out of this. You know what I mean? Or whatever. This guy's got something and something's going to happen out of that. You know, I do believe that you do have to have that. And I do believe that Pat is a great man, but he knows how to pick up on, he's got a good eye for putting things together.
Yeah, well,
you know,
100%.
he really does. He really does, and I thank him time and time again for it. I mean, look at my outfit. This is all I fucking wear. You know, my fucking underwear. You know what I mean? There's not much, you know, but it is what it is. But you know, I'm blessed for it.
That's awesome, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on, man. It means a lot to have someone like you here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to make it happen. I know we talked about this before.
A ton.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll definitely put it out. And remember, guys, that everything was impossible until someone did it.